Hi, welcome to This Week in Ames. I'm Susan Guiazda. On today's show, we're going to check in with the Ames Public Works Department. My guest today is Corey Millis, Operations Manager for the City of Ames Public Works Department. Corey, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit about what you do as Operations Manager and how long you've been with the city.
In the Public Works Department, I'm the Operations Manager, so I oversee all the major maintenance activities, so streets, all the utilities, water, storm, sewer, and sanitary sewer. We also deal in snow removal and cemetery.
And you've done a couple of different jobs at the city. This wasn't your original job when you first came here.
No, I originally started in the engineering department. I'm a civil engineer, and 2 years ago started as the Operations Manager.
So you have a lot of different specialties, as you talked about. One of them is overseeing stormwater and the stormwater utility. There's been some changes in the way that the City of Ames is billing now for stormwater, and that process has been long and it's been improved.
Yes, it started when I was in my old position in the engineering department, but I've stayed with it over the last couple of years. And what we're looking at now is going to a more simplified fee structure based on the council directives.
Now, stormwater is one of those utilities that's a little unusual for people. They don't actually use stormwater in the way you might use your water or electricity, but you still pay for it.
Yes, we still have to maintain the system, and we have a large amount of requirements because we're a city that's called a municipal separate storm sewer system. MS4 is what they call it. That has certain requirements about the amount of inspections and the amount of cleaning, things like that we do. So there's a cost to kind of maintain the system, and that's what the fee is used for.
Stormwater is becoming more and more talked about, probably because of the damages from runoff, and when you don't have a system that's maintained, some of the property damage that comes with that. What are some of the components of the stormwater utility?
The stormwater utility gets into the regular maintenance activities, so whether that's rebuilding intakes or pipes, but there's also things like education and outreach. We do rain gardens and rain barrel rebates, things like that, to help kind of let people know that there's ways they can reduce the amount of runoff that goes into our system.
And current building standards require developers to be aware of that stormwater runoff and not add to the amount.
Yes, the current storm water requirements require that they can't increase the amount that's currently leaving the site. So if it's farmland, they can't increase the amount that leaves the site based on up to a 100-year storm event. But there still is all the piping and a subdivision and things like that the city will ultimately be responsible for.
So when you drive into your home or your apartment and those grates that you see on the street, even the street itself is a conveyance mode. The greenways, all the retention basins, all those things sort of help that system stop the deterioration and the erosion that goes on.
Correct. They're all kind of one part of one larger system, even though there's several areas where it outfalls. It's not like water or the wastewater where you have a centralized area. So you might have different watersheds where they drain different areas, but it's all part of one major system for the city.
So a stormwater utility fee is a fee that everybody pays as part of their contribution to that system.
Yes. Currently, if you have a utility account, you pay a flat fee to contribute towards the storm sewer system.
And I know the City Council directive was that this utility should work similar to other utilities in that the more you contribute to the system, the more you should pay.
Yes, and so the easiest way to do that is the amount of impervious area, which is hard surface, so your rooftops, concrete driveways, gravel that allows the water to run directly off of that and into the street or our system. And so that was the easiest way to kind of base the fees on, was the amount of impervious, because that would relate to the amount of runoff.
So some people will say, well, gravel isn't hard surface. Gravel would let water penetrate, but...
Usually not. Usually gravel becomes so packed in over the years that it's more equivalent to concrete than grass. So that's why we consider it impervious, because it will, over time, it will become, just packed down and become hard, and then so the water runs off, much like concrete.
Okay, so you mentioned rooftops, decks, patios, sheds, all those surfaces that...
Yep. And the way we did it is we used our geographic information system, we call it a GIS, that when they mapped the city, did aerial photography, they actually mapped all the impervious areas, so streets, sidewalks, buildings, anything that was over 150 square feet. So that's how we kind of based each parcel.
Now, you and I have had this conversation before when we first talked about impervious surface and determining each residence or each property owner's stormwater fee. Now, that original system that was developed was modified recently.
Yes, we originally looked at more just, we called it an ERU system, which basically stood for your average amount on a residential property. Then you use that to calculate impervious area. It just kind of took the numbers and made them a little smaller. But after getting feedback from the citizens, council decided that maybe it was too drastic of a change and too complicated with all the changes that we were going to require, and there was a shifting of revenues. So they asked us to come back with a simplified system that still took impervious into account, but was simpler for people to understand, but still based it on impervious.
So what does the new system look like for stormwater utility billing?
We're calling it a tier system, and so what we did is we took the impervious per parcel and the accounts on the parcel and kind of gave each account an amount of impervious, and then used that to kind of divide it into 4 tiers, and then those tiers will have an associated flat fee to the account. So it'll be much like the same system, but your larger impervious people will pay more per account than your average residential.
Well, the concern with the flat fee system that we currently use was that somebody, say, who owns a parking lot would pay the same as somebody who owns a home. And the movement was towards a more fair and equitable system. Now, with the tier system, what's the range in monthly fees for the tiers?
Most of the properties in the city will fall under Tier 1 because most of our properties are residential, smaller. But yeah, the larger industrial users, your larger commercial properties will pay more than your average residential.
Well, Corey, that's been a long time in the works, and obviously, as we talked about, it's gone through modifications reflecting the input that the citizen customers provided. When can we expect those new rates to take effect?
We're hoping to take the ordinance back soon, so we'll have to work and see if council has any changes to the ordinance. If they don't, we'd expect early next year that it would take effect and people would start paying. We'll be having a map on the website like we did for the previous system, and we'll be mailing some of the most impacted properties.
Yeah, and that map was really helpful, so you could go into the map and enter an address, and it would tell you again what new tier you're in and what your new monthly rate would be.
Yep. The new map's actually color coded, so if you're curious about other properties too, the larger industrial, you can look those up too. But if you just type in your address and hit search, it'll take you to your property so you can see what your new bill will be.
That's great. Well, another part of what you do each and every day, and hopefully not too much this winter, is snow removal. That's always a big issue with Ames residents. Keeping the streets snow and safe and snow-free are always important. What are some things that residents can do to help you as you get into snow shoveling season this year?
I think one of the things that helps us the most is make sure if you're on a snow route, the red and white signs. You can also get on the city website and look for our snow information on the Public Works page. That if you're on one of those routes, make sure you get off if the snow ordinance is in effect, so you don't get towed. And we obviously do that because those are our major routes, so we want to make sure they're clear from curb to curb. And
putting the snow ordinance in effect is something we try to make very visible and very public. The snow ordinance is only in effect when, 2 inches?
Yes, when we have 2 inches or more on our arterial streets. And so usually we'll put it into a place in advance with a time to let people give them some more.
And we put that on the website. We put it out on Channel 12. Obviously, it's another place to get it. We put it on our Facebook page. Lots of different media outlets carry that information. If it's a snow flurry, if it's a half inch of snow or less, and you're on a snow route, really you don't have a worry. But
yes,
if it accumulates and you get to that 2 inch mark.
If we're forecasting, and we think we're going to get it, but we don't, say and it's only flurries, then no, we wouldn't tow. We only tow when it's actually over that 2 inch amount and it's in effect. So
right, and that's another good point, that if you're on a snow route and we need to get the plows through those streets, that your car could be ticketed and towed.
Yes, so that's why it helps everybody if you're on one of those routes to get off and park someplace else.
Now, if you're not on a snow route, why is it helpful to move your car?
It's just easier for us to plow. They can obviously do it faster because they don't have to move around, and we don't have to go back and clean up. A lot of times you'll see if a car's there and we plow, you leave kind of a small amount of snow in the street, and the car moves the next day, and then we have to go back and either clean it up or eventually it becomes kind of just ice pack. So if people get off the street, we can go curb to curb and clean it better and faster.
Okay, and when can you park back on the street?
It would be when it is stopped snowing and it's plowed curb to curb.
Yeah, and that curb to curb is important to remember because a lot of times the plow will do one side and then it'll come back and do the other, and you don't want to slip in there while they're still working.
Yes, and on major routes, they'll plow continuously, so just because you see them go past once, if it's still snowing, they're going to come back through. So it's definitely, watch the forecast and know when it stops snowing.
Well, as property owners, what do you need to be aware of with your sidewalks?
We require sidewalks to be clear of snow and ice 10 daylight hours after the snow has stopped, and after that time, if we receive a complaint, we will investigate and let the people know that they need to clear their sidewalk. If it's not done within 24 hours, then we will contract it out and charge that to the property owner.
Right, a lot of people still are active in the winter, and those sidewalks become an important transportation route for pedestrians for getting to school or work or whatever. So along with shoveling out your driveway, you really need to make sure you get that sidewalk cleared as well.
Yes, and with Ames being such a high pedestrian use city with Iowa State, it's very important. And there are ways, if you get on the city's webpage, we do have some emails set up so you could log snow complaints either by a hotline or an email for sidewalks. And also if you see something you don't think is right on the streets, we have an email set up for that you can email us.
So if you notice a particularly icy intersection or you think a street got missed, that might be something you would email in?
Yeah, if you want to email, there's also a phone number so you can call or email. Either one works for us to let us know, or social media is a great way to let us know too.
Absolutely. Well, Corey, it sounds like you're very busy as always. Thank you for coming by.
All right, thank you.
Well, if you're looking for an interesting holiday gift this season, why not get discounted tickets to the Furman Aquatic Center? You can buy those discounted season passes beginning on Saturday, December 1st at the Ames Community Center. You'll get 10% off for early purchase and 20% off if it's a renewal. And don't forget your four-legged friends this holiday season. You can get discounted dog tags to the Ames Dog Park starting December 1st as well. That discount is 10% for early purchase. Well, that's our show for today. Thanks for watching, and tune in next week for This Week in Ames.